The great Lisa Shorr of Shorr Success returns this week to discuss news from ConnectWise and Augmentt around cyber insurance, partner program changes from Mailprotector and Malwarebytes, and 7 threat trends you need to know about, plus a special guest interview with Splashtop channel chief Justin Windsor. It's ChannelPro Weekly number 228. What's a cassette? Hello and welcome to ChannelPro Weekly episode 228. My name is Matt Whitlock, technology editor, online director, and your host of this fine show for the folks out there like you, the VARs, the MSPs, the IT integrators, the managed security services providers, did I say IT consultants here and there as well? If you do things with technology and you implement technology solutions with other businesses, you are in the right place. Welcome, 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 one and all. Glad to have you here. And it's good to be back. We were gone last week. We had a big event. We're going to talk to the man of the hour about that in a moment. But it's good to be here. We got a great guest host lined up for you. We'll get to her in just a second. But please welcome the guy who keeps the trains running on time here at ChannelPro, executive editor Rich Freeman.
Greetings, Matt. Good to be back.
Good to be back. It's always tough when we miss a week because it's like we sit down and like, wow, I don't even remember how to do this anymore. And I had all my intros kind of messed up. I had one for you. I was going to introduce you as Tuckles the Clown with a size 44 shoe, and I know that's not you either. So folks will have to bear with us while we got to get back on track here. But Rich, why weren't we here last week? It's important to explain why we were gone.
Well, where we were was Dallas, Texas. We were at the most recent ChannelPro SMB Forum event in Dallas, which was awesome.
It went well. Tell folks who weren't there what they missed and how they can not miss it in the future.
Well, let's start with what you missed, because this will get you interested in attending down the road. Once again, Matt, we have packed a day, plus some awesome pre-day stuff as well, but we have packed a day with content that is absolutely top of mind, super relevant stuff for the channel pros out there. We had sessions on cybersecurity, on making money off of Microsoft Azure, on hiring and retention, which is a huge issue for folks out there right now, on strategic thinking about the future for MSPs, including how to navigate the M&A landscape. We had a really great, once again, hands-on kind of workshop about social media marketing led by the folks at Janet Shine's organization. Great stuff. Just amazing content start to finish all day long. And you know what, Matt? If you weren't there in Dallas and you missed out on it, and if you missed out when we did this event in Chicago and in Newark earlier this year, we're going to be doing it 3 more times this year. The beginning of August, we're going to be in Charlotte, North Carolina. Beginning of September, we're going to be in the Washington, D.C. area. And beginning of November, we're going to be in Southern California, in the greater Los Angeles area. And we would love to see you at any or all those events. You can get the exact dates. You can sign up to attend those at events.channelpronetwork.com.
That is the place to go, and it was a ball. It was a lot of fun. Even lunch was really good. So not only did they get a lot of great content, they got a good meal out of it too, and it was pretty tasty. So make it a point, folks. Charlotte, North Carolina is the next one. We're a couple months away from that. We'll be kind of talking about it on the show here and there as we get closer. But make it a point to be there, or in DC, or in LA if you're on the West Coast. It is something you don't want to miss. Everyone's talking about how awesome our shows have been this year. They're awesome every year. I'm not going to lie, but they've been particularly good this year, and everyone's really excited. So make sure that you make it a point to go, and you won't want to miss it. And you know who may not miss it in the future? Rich, our guest host, because she's been to many of our events and she'll tell you how awesome they are. She's a certified image consultant, owner of Shorr Success, and a co-owner of Secure Future Tech Solutions, a Rhode Island-based MSP, so the far New England area. She has more than 2 decades of experience in the sales and marketing area, conducts workshops, coaches MSPs on professional development and corporate branding. Please welcome back to the show. It's always a pleasure when she's on, Lisa Shorr. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you so much for having me back. I think this is my 4th or 5th podcast that I'm doing with you guys.
That's a good question, because you are the one where we kind of had to do it twice one time. And that's a funny story that we always like to tell on the show. So let's see how many guest appearances from Lisa Shorr has been. Yeah, it's been several. 71, 127.
2.
So it was take 2.
I did a 3rd one somewhere.
175. You've been on quite a few. You have been on quite a few, and it's always a blast when you're on and when you're here. I know you have a long track record of being here with us, but we get new listeners and new viewers all the time. Please tell them a little bit about you and about a little bit about Shorr Success, a little bit about the MSP that you run, and tell them why you are awesome and why we keep having you back.
Well, I am awesome because I love this channel. I love the two of you. We have great chemistry together. We talk tech, we talk image and branding, and it's always fun. So I have been, as Matt, you said, I've been around in the sales and marketing arena for 26 years now. And I focus on really building brands, whether it's a corporate brand or a personal brand. So my MSP has been around. We just yesterday had a big celebration of 30 years. And so we specialize, we're right in Rhode Island. We specialize with law firms, property management companies, other small businesses. And I love to talk about our experiences and share the MSP perspective. I also love to coach MSPs on building communication skills, strong, confident service teams. A lot of other MSPs hire me because they want to act, they don't know how to communicate together, or they're really missing the mark communicating well with their clients, and they're getting survey scores that are less than stellar, or maybe they're even losing clients. And they're getting kind of feedback that says, hey, our phone skills are off, and I'm getting some feedback from clients that we really need to be more friendly, be more empathetic. Can you help me with that? So it's all about the personal brand and how can we make really confident, what I call brand building rock stars. So I live in both worlds.
Yeah, and it's so important that MSPs focus on not only just being able to provide technical services and technical skills, but really that being able to deliver service in a way that enforces things like proper etiquette, that really does increase your brand. How did you end up kind of coming up with seeing that as such an important thing when you were getting started?
Oh, there's a big reason, because my MSP was losing clients. I lost one client because of our phone skills. And they said, every time I call, you act as if you have no idea who I am. And by the way, that was a 10-year client. So we were seeing a lot of issues, a lot of struggles. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm the marketer here. My degree's in marketing, and we're getting PR, and we're getting out there, and we're marketing and networking. But what I was missing is the real important component was that relationship building. It's one thing bringing leads in, but if you don't have the relationship with your clients, then it's all for naught. And so I started shifting my training and the professional development training I was doing while everybody else is getting certified in SonicWall and what have you. I'm learning about vocal skills. I'm learning about nonverbal behavior. I'm learning about clothing and posture and all kinds of appearances and communication skills, emotional intelligence. That's my training. And so it worked so well in my MSP. People started to ask me, hey, how did you do that? Tell me about your phone training. Tell me about, and so I decided I'm taking it to the road. And here I am today. And I've got some amazing MSP clients that I'm working with for a variety of ways and reasons. And some want me to help with communicating and creating video content and how do you sound confident when you're in a meeting. Others want to just work on their service team. So it's been an amazing journey, one that's needed. And the last thing I'll say on that, Matt, is there's a lot of MSPs out there. How do we differentiate ourselves? It's through client experience. Customer service is one thing. Customer service is we're going to answer the phones. We're going to close tickets. Hey, we're going to have an RMM and a PSA, and we're going to, do some cybersecurity solutions. That's customer service. That's what's expected. But the experience is really what sets us apart. It's all about the client buys on feeling. Do they feel confident that they're making the right decision? Do they feel confident that you understand their business needs? Do they feel? And that's what makes the difference. And that's where your soft skills, really the essential skills, come in. Those interpersonal skills. So critical. So critical.
Absolutely. I mean, Rich, you've been around a little while. I can tell, when I call places, like I could probably guess how old the person is answering the phone, because I've noticed that the younger generations, in particular, ones that didn't really grow up on actually speaking to people on the phone, they grew up texting, people. Like, do you notice that, Rich, that there's like definitely a breakdown of phone skills in particular?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And, it's an interesting, this is maybe a slightly different topic, but it becomes an interesting issue for channel pros hiring salespeople, because so many salespeople are from that generation and really want to interact with their customers exclusively via text, or like phone sales skills, from what I understand, are quite often lacking out there right now as well. It's just not something that people, it's not a medium people are as used to utilizing as they used to.
Right. It's the phones, and as well as, and I want to add in, it's your service team is on the phones all day long as well. And what do they sound like? How do they communicate? How do they make the client feel? Because once the sales happens, it goes over to service, and service technically is selling. Even though they're servicing, they're selling every day. They're selling the brand, they're selling the emotion of trust. And so we've got to have phone skills all around. And it's definitely a challenge. All of this video hybrid workforces has become a challenge. And how do we look and sound professional? Rich, you and I did during the pandemic, a fun little video together, a podcast together on some of the do's and don'ts of remote hybrid workspaces. And so it's really important, both sides of the house. There's the sales side and making the deal, but then the service folks are the ones that are really maintaining the deal. And so those phone skills are so important, and they truly are. A lot of people are monotone, or they're soft, or they sound disinterested. A service manager once said to me, I'm just going to quickly pick up the phone because I'm in the middle of a ticket. I just pick up the phone. And I'm like, let's think about that. Let's think about who's on the other end of that phone. It's a client who's frustrated because they don't understand tech, or they can't find a file. Maybe their servers crashed, or they have no idea how to, whatever it is, they don't know. And so we have to always turn on our charm every time. For sure.
So how much has that, you said that you were struggling for a while, you kind of reinvested in your team in these soft skills and worked to build that side. Has that really made like a tremendous difference?
Huge. Hands down, every single employee now gets phone skills training. Every new employee gets my phone skills training. Every single week during one of our staff meetings, like Wednesdays is Wednesday Wisdom, and it's all about some inspirational quote, which we always talk about professional development. We don't talk tech every day. Every single week, we build in the conversation of appearance, behavior, confidence in your voice. I mean, I use my company oftentimes as my groundwork. Then I take it. Now I've had enough clients now that I actually have content all around. But in the beginning, my company was my, I don't want to say guinea pig, but was my foundation. And so what were we seeing differently? We were seeing survey scores increase. I was seeing utilization of my team. So their billable time went up because we communicated why. We communicated the power that they have within the organization. So we talked about the power of documentation. This isn't a conversation necessarily of operations. However, we talked about why it's important. And so we started really communicating. Like we had our 30th party last night. We had a great client and employee event last night. I had no problem saying to my whole team, grooming matters for this party. Make sure, and they know I'm going to say it. Like they know now it's part of our culture. But we have clients that have been with us 15 years. And why? It's because we take stock in what we're doing. So ROI on image is client retention, team culture, survey scores, fewer client complaints, because if you really look at the client complaints, it's typically not the tech side of things. These engineers are so smart and so savvy. We just have to get them to communicate it in a way that our clients feel trusted and validated and understood. and not like, oh my God, he thinks I'm an idiot. You know, we have to be very mindful and careful of how we present ourselves.
Yeah. Does it get contentious sometimes, especially as you get into the appearance side of training? Because like, you know, it's supposed to be a hyper tolerant world and people are supposed to be allowed to have their hair pink and, you know, piercings all over their faces. And we're supposed to be like, yay, good for you. That's wonderful. How do you square that? Do you run into issues with training that or dictating dress or appearance, that kind of thing?
So a lot of my engineers have beards, long beard. The trend in our industry are long beards. And I just talk to them about, in a group setting, I'll say, you know, let's talk about grooming and don't forget for the party. And so for those of you, and I make it lighthearted, but I make it part of the conversation. For those of you with beards, clean them up, trim them up, you know, make sure your hair is cut, combed, the whole thing. And I make that a general discussion. So that's number one. But number two, if there's really a problem, it's a one-on-one conversation. It's something that I handle privately, empathetically. Hey, I noticed something, you know, whether it's body odor or whatever it could be in terms of appearance. I mean, that's part of it. But a lot of it can be discussed in a group setting. And a great example is one of my engineers actually last week went with Eric on a new client exploration meeting. And I didn't notice until the next day when we went on one of our group meetings that his hair was cut, his beard was trimmed. He looked great. And I said, wow, you look amazing. And he just very matter-of-factly at this point, I was really thrilled that he said it like this. Well, we had that meeting yesterday and I wanted to look good for it. And I was like, yes, you know, it's my little win inside because we spend a lot of time talking about this, a lot of time. I mean, it's like, you know, you monitor and maintain a network and people think, oh, they're paying me monthly MRR, whatever. Image and your culture is the same concept. You have to monitor and maintain it for it to stay and for it to really take hold and become part of the culture. But when my engineer said to me the other day, you know, it was our group meeting, so one of our staff meetings, and he was like, I knew I was going on that meeting and I wanted to look good. I was like, yes. So I felt like that was a good win. Absolutely. Not an easy process, but consistency is key.
So for MSPs out there who maybe have not put any thought into this at all, what are like 3 actionable things that are maybe simple to implement that will make a difference on the branding side, the service side, the appearance side? What are like 3 things that they should do off the bat?
Okay, number one, I think having some consistency in appearance. So order some shirts for the team. We just ordered for last night's giveaway for the party. We ordered t-shirts for everybody. And so now everybody will have the same t-shirt or polo shirt, depending, it's upside down. But now everyone has like a logoed shirt. And so that's number one, really take stock. And that's an easy thing, is order shirts for everybody. Make that part of your marketing expense and invest in that. So that's number one. Number two, have a conversation of how does our client feel? What does our client feel? And then let's talk about what our voices should sound like. So really starting to have, and as part of your staff meeting discussions, talk about your client's emotions and then how do you feel? And number 3 is write a standard phone script for everybody in the company for answering the phone. A standard script for everybody in the company to answer the phone. I mean, there are scripts to a lot of different responses you can have, but if everybody answers the phone the same way, the phones are the front line. It's the first impression of a company, of a service company like ours. And clients want to hear a friendly, consistent voice on the other end. And make sure, one last little tidbit to that is, make sure you say your name. Names are probably one of the best and underutilized marketing tool of all free marketing tools. Knowing someone's name, saying someone's name is an instant relationship builder. So I think I gave you 4 there. But
it's great advice. And there's actually a school that will teach people how to speak like James Corden. I think if you sign up for that, that might also help with your at least your sound on the phone.
Your elocution is key. So for sure.
There's probably got to be like a Sean Connery voice school too. You know, you could just like kind of get, because the English folks have that English accent. They always sound great, right? Like they could be like telling you the worst things in the world. And you're like, yes, tell me more.
I'm so sorry. Oh, that's okay. Please tell me more. No, I have a terrible British accent, but I definitely swoon when I hear it. For sure.
And so you will work with MSPs and teach them this stuff, right? Isn't that what Shorr Success is all about?
100%. Yep.
So we'll towards the end of the show, folks, and in the show notes we'll get all the information on if you want to learn more about this and work with Lisa to train you up on the on those types of skills that you might have overlooked. You will get your opportunity to do just that. But we got to plow ahead because boy, oh boy, do we have a big show ahead. We've got a bunch of stories we're going to cover. A couple of them we're going to cover kind of in groups because they're kind of related. We're going to be talking about RSA. I have the show notes for a previous show up, so give me a second because I was looking back to see which other episodes Miss Lisa was on. We're going to talk about RSA, 7 threats out of the RSA conference. We definitely don't want to miss that. ConnectWise, Augmentt, Mailprotector, Malwarebytes, all kinds of stuff. Plus, we have an interview that admittedly we had to record yesterday. Kind of a long story. We're not doing a quick wardrobe change in the middle of this. Speaking of appearance, but no, we're going to be talking with Justin Windsor, the channel chief of Splashtop. Awesome conversation. Absolutely don't want to miss that. And of course, we're going to have some fun and talk about lots of other things with Lisa along the way. Strap in. It's going to be a great show. Rich, we're going to talk about ConnectWise and Augmentt. They're doing some similar stuff. Why don't you go ahead and set it up for us?
Yeah, you know, if something happens, basically the same thing happens on 2 consecutive days, especially if the same thing has happened a few more times earlier in the year, that qualifies as a trend. And I think we can officially say we've got a trend going in the industry right now where vendors of various kinds, either security vendors or management vendors in this case, are signing deals with cyber insurance companies in a bid basically to make it easier to apply for and get coverage. So we're talking about 2 things actually that happened last week while we were in Dallas at our show. Last Monday, Augmentt, they are a still very young company. They specialize in cloud management, software as a service in particular management. And they announced a deal that they put together with a company, a cyber insurer called SeedPod Cyber. And SeedPod had worked out with their insurance underwriter that if they could document that the people they're insuring checked off a long list of qualifications, and we're all kind of familiar with that process these days. But if they could confirm that the people they're insuring meet various cyber insurance or cybersecurity, qualifications, they could discount policies for those people. And so they determined, as they looked at this list of qualifications that they wanted from the insurance applicants, that they could get most of that data from an MSP's RMM system. And so, okay, if we work with the MSP who's helping their client apply, we can get information from the RMM system that will prove to us they really are doing these important things. But there was a lot of cloud-related stuff that a traditional RMM system doesn't track, doesn't know, and they couldn't get validation on those items. And so SeedPod put a deal together with Augmentt. And if you are an MSP who are running 2 of Augmentt's 4 products, Augmentt Discover and Augmentt Secure, you're going to be able to document to SeedPod that you have a complete inventory of all the software as a service solutions that this end user is running, that you have policies, access policies in place. You're not just using an MFA product, but you can kind of show that it's being used in 100% with 100% of the users, and there's an enforcement mechanism in place in case somebody accidentally or intentionally shuts it off. So basically, you can prove to SeedPod via Augmentt Discover and Augmentt Secure that your customer is doing the right things, and that is going to qualify the customer for up to a 40% discount on insurance. And at a time when insurance rates are way up, that's a big deal. There's a company called Marsh that tracks insurance pricing generally, including cyber insurance policies. Most recent quarter that they tracked, which I believe was Q2, it was Q1 of this year, pricing was up 110% year over year in the US on cyber insurance. So anything that you can do to help your customers get insurance and get it at a reasonable price is going to be appreciated. And that brings us to ConnectWise, because while we were in Dallas doing our show, ConnectWise was in Orlando doing their IT Nation Secure show. They announced a number of things during that show, but the big story had to do with a cyber insurance initiative. And theirs involved two different third-party companies. There's a company called Control Case that can help a cyber insurance company collect information from end users about their cybersecurity best practices. And so ConnectWise has a deal in place with Control Case now, an integration basically with the Control Case software that allows Control Case to extract information that they need for the insurance applicant out of the ConnectWise managed PSA system. So that's going to make life easier. It's a good thing for the end user. It's actually a good thing for the MSP too, because I know a lot of people in the audience right now are spending a lot of time helping their customers fill out these questionnaires from insurance companies. And if you can automate that a little bit with a tool like Control Case that is pulling the information for you out of your PSA, that's going to save you time. But then once you've pulled that information together, if you choose, optionally, you can forward it all on electronically to a cyber insurance broker called Fifth Wall Solutions. They have relationships with over 35 cyber insurance providers, and they can take that information that you automatically collected, pass it along to the cyber insurance companies, and get you quotes from some selection of those 35 companies. And so again, streamlining the application process, helping you help your customer to prove to the insurance companies that they're a good risk, which ultimately really should get them a better rate. Now, I mentioned this is two examples of vendors working with insurance companies being announced on consecutive days last week. But earlier in the year, Trend Micro announced that they're doing something very similar to this with a cyber insurance company called Cowbell Cyber. We actually had their CEO on the podcast once upon a time, Matt. And another insurance company, IGI Cyber Labs, better known for their Nodeware vulnerability management product, they signed a similar deal with Cowbell as well. So that's 4 examples just within the last few months, basically, of vendors working with cyber insurance companies. And you alluded to the fact that I was at RSA last week. I had a conversation with an executive from Trend Micro at RSA, and he said, you are absolutely going to be seeing more and more of these deals coming because everybody wants this to happen. That the end users want it to happen because anything that makes it easier to get insurance at a better rate is good. MSPs want it to be easier for their customers to apply for insurance and get insurance. And the insurance companies really do want to understand better what these applicants are doing and how good or not good a risk they are. And they know that to get that information, they've got to work with IT management companies, cybersecurity companies. So 4 examples within the last few months. And before the year is done, Matt, there will be many more of these, I predict.
Oh, I can only imagine. That's episode 148, by the way. If anyone wants to check out our interview with the CEO of Cowbell Cyber, it was Jack Cadale was his name. Really, really good interview. I do remember that. But Rich, this stuff couldn't come at one of the better time. But we also know this was coming, right? Because cyber insurance rates are through the roof, and people have to find a way to discount. And these are not small discounts either, right? Like 40% off of a current cyber insurance quote these days. That is a significant amount of money on the table. But Lisa, you're in the trenches of all this. I'm sure you're dealing with this each and every day. What have you seen with cyber insurance rates, and how needed are deals like this to make it easier to get at least reasonable rates?
Yeah, it's so needed. Well, so just to give you my own MSP's perspective, a lot of insurance companies actually don't even want to cover cyber anymore because, Rich, you mentioned the word risk. A lot of them don't want the risk. So now you even have a more limited pool of insurance companies to pick from because they don't want the risk. So for our MSP, we were quoted as a renewal price. We were going with one broker or one insurance company. They quoted us $18,000 and we were paying last year. I mean, it was triple from what were we paying? We were paying like 7,000 or 8,000 or something last year. I mean, it's outrageous, the cost of cyber insurance. we ended up, but because they didn't want to write it, they didn't want us because they felt that we were a risk, our clients were a risk. And so we ended up finding another broker and it worked out much better. But just to give you an experience, it's outrageous. The other side of that, as an MSP who is helping clients there's two sides of it. One, we have to help them fill out the form. And two, if they don't have the technology in place, we have to get them up to speed. So we're seeing a lot of clients come to us now saying, hey, I can't get renewed. Can you help us? But the forms are so cumbersome. I have one template that is an Excel spreadsheet from an insurance company, and there are 7 different tabs. There's an HR tab there. I mean, it's ridiculous how many hours it takes my engineers and my sales team to help them with the renewal. The process is outrageous. And so if these products can help us, and I was, by the way, at IT Nation last week speaking. So I'm sorry I wasn't in Dallas, but I was at IT Nation and I did meet the folks at Fifth Wall, said a quick hello, because I knew that they were newer on the market and they're brand new. I mean, this whole conversation is brand new and announced, but I know we were all grumbling in the MSP sphere about cyber insurance, but we're shocked at how it's now part of the services we provide. And so it's so important that I'm excited about these possibilities. I am not an Augmentt client right now, but after listening to you actually unpack this situation, the story, Rich, I'm actually more intrigued than ever before. So I might have to do a little more research on them for my MSP purposes. But if there's a way that can help support the process of pulling data, so I don't have to manually do it, it's outrageous the time that it takes. It's really, so I love that.
That's what I was going to ask. How much time, hours wise, would you say you spend helping clients, finish these cyber insurance applications today versus just 2 years ago?
Well, you're looking at days versus, because if they don't have so the risk is if you don't have everything in place, like if you don't have all the technology that they want, the more technology you have, the lower your risk, the better your rate. So they'll quote you or they're going to deny you. And so it's not a matter of how much time am I spending. It's really a matter of, it's hours. First of all, just the forms themselves to pull and extract the data and then to talk to the client. And if the client doesn't have, so it could be days. And so but the big difference is it's prevalent now. It wasn't, I don't know. We've talked about cyber insurance in the past but it's now like, it's almost becoming like a solution or has to become part of our product mix. It feels like, I don't know what the result will be. So that's more of the changes. It's now, I don't know why it's so, I think it's because the pandemic has just created havoc. I mean, when you look at the trends that we're going to be talking about, Rich, one of them is like the exploit. I mean, I have a client that went through it. And so there's so much risk out there that a lot of insurance providers don't even want to deal. So I think that's becoming the bigger question.
It doesn't seem like a good risk to take because like the ransomware aspect of the threat landscape out right now, it seems like it's almost inevitable that you're going to get hacked and you're going to have to pay. So it doesn't seem like a very, very good proposition for them to insure, right?
Well, that's the problem, right? Because it's not a matter of if these days, it's when. I mean, for you to mention that in the article that Huntress, who is very well known and respected and we're going to talk about it. I know I'm jumping ahead, but I mean, there's a lot of well-known providers that have been hacked. So it's at this point, we have to have that mindset. But from an insurance perspective, they want to see what's covered. We actually just did a webinar. We did a partnership webinar with TechRug. And so we had a whole discussion. We also had an attorney to talk about the ramifications of the legal ramifications, because so many of our clients are experiencing this. We felt like we needed to do a sort of public service announcement discussion of what do you need to do? What's the risk? How do you get coverage? And then what if you don't get coverage and you're breached? Will you still what's the end result? Are you going to have to pay the ransom, not pay the ransom? Whatever the legal ramifications are. So it's something that is going to be an even deeper discussion as we move on. And the risk piece is just as strong as the, are we going to get hacked piece? So for sure.
Well, you say that these customers are coming to you and they're looking for your help because you have a lot of if you're working on with them already, you have a lot of the information that they need in order to get the applications done. But you're also saying like sometimes these insurance companies are making up new requirements and you have new technologies. There is kind of an opportunity there working with customers. So even though it seems like it's a time sink, there has to be a lot of selling opportunity within that.
Well, absolutely. 100%. I mean, an MSP should be open to this whole conversation because so many of our clients are missing. Well, these days, some of the key things, I wrote down just some of the key things that we need. We need endpoint protection. We need spam filtering, firewalls, BDR, multi-factor authentication. A lot of them like BDRs and stuff, a lot of our clients have backup and all that, but still there's a lot of resistance to multi-factor or two-factor because it's an extra step and they don't want to make the extra step and they don't want to, but that's an opportunity for us to upsell to make sure that we have to sell it so that they understand you need to be in compliance with the risk and with what insurance companies want you to have. And also, by the way, the more secure your network is, and the more boxes you can check off on my checklist here, the lower your premium will be, the lower your policy will be. And it's thousands. I mean, insurance is an outrageous number. It's probably, I think payroll is number one in our company. Number two is health insurance. And probably number three would be insurance, and those are some of the top expenses of any MSP. So
it's like the one silver lining of all the headaches associated with cyber insurance right now is it really is pushing a lot of SMBs to do things they should have been doing before anyway.
Yes.
So the insurance companies want these SMBs to be safer so that there are less claims activity for them to pay out on, and it's actually kind of prodding small and mid-sized businesses in the right direction. So it is helpful in that way.
We want it to be easier for clients. We want them to be able to get the coverage they need, to get the protection they need. But the trick is that they have to have the technology. I mean, from our perspective, I should say, there's a lot of different factors, but from an MSP perspective, they have to have the technology in place to show that they are, in fact, doing what they need to do. And there's a lot of people who lie. There's a lot of people who, don't understand the questionnaires. And so I like, just to bring it back to the tools, I like the idea of us maybe adopting this in the future. And if that could streamline the process and make the process easier, because what if a client gets breached and we said, yep, you've got the coverage, but they really don't? Could they be denied at that point? Could they be, and that's a risk for an MSP that, there's a lot of risk all around. There's a risk for the client to not have the coverage and have to pay us thousands of dollars, but then there's reputational damage on our part too. And we don't want that. So,
and I guarantee the insurance company is going to look, in the case of a claim, is going to look for every single possibility to say
sure.
no.
I bet. I'm sure they will. Yeah. So.
And if they've taken your personal branding class, then when they deny them, your customer will feel good about it because they'll have sounded so nice.
Well, I don't know if that really relates to this. I don't think I want to combine the two, Matt. I think that let's keep,
deny them and make them feel good about it at the same time.
Completely different. I mean, I think it is part of building your credibility and building your brand is supporting your clients in this process and having integrity in the process. So I like that there's technology being created to really hone in on how does it make it easier. I mean, we have our technicians are so busy. They're busier now more than ever with all the hybrid workspaces and this is another addition to their plate. And now we've got to go to the RMM, see how many agents. I mean, we've got thousands of agents. It's like but we got to add them in. We got to write, everything is a line item, everything. These spreadsheets are cumbersome. So, hey, if some of these products and services can streamline that process, wow, I'm excited.
Yeah,
I'm very
for sure.
excited about it.
For sure. And there is a lot also in these two news stories to digest and to get more information. So we're going to put links to these stories in the show notes for episode 228. If you're on, if you go to channelpronetwork.com, find the show page for 228, you'll see all those links there. If you're on your phone, you can open up the description area. Most of the time, the links will be in there for you. If you're on YouTube, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, just press everything on the screen. That just makes it a whole lot easier. But also leave a comment, but open up the description area. We put links in there as well, so you can kind of follow along as we go, because there's a lot more information that you need to know. And it's good stuff. And this is important. And as Rich alluded, there's going to be a lot more of this going forward. Rich, while my phone rings off the hook, why don't you tell us about the next stories we're going to talk about?
So this will be a little bit quicker. It just happens to concern two different companies that I met with last week that are getting, I will say, more serious. This isn't the first time that they've been recruiting MSPs as partners, but they're both sort of doubling down on that in different ways. And these companies, both familiar names, I think, to most folks in the audience, Mailprotector and Malwarebytes. We'll start with Mailprotector. They have a new chief revenue officer on board there, and increasing the size of the MSP channel at Mailprotector, an email security vendor for folks who haven't heard of them. Big part of his strategy for growing revenue going forward. And so they have completely revamped the Mailprotector partner program there. So, they didn't have MDF before. You can get MDF now. They've added free customer onboarding assistance. That's a benefit that wasn't available previously. There are a number of different things they've done like that to make partnering with Mailprotector, that much more appealing. But here's the thing that really jumps off the page in this story, I think, for any MSP reading about it. At a time when more and more vendors are locking MSPs into 1-year contracts, 3-year contracts, like this is a pain point for MSPs right now, these increasingly long contracts that vendors are looking for. Mailprotector, in their new partner program, actually decided to go the other way. So their contracts are 30 days long. Basically, if you want to be a part of this partner program, you have to commit to spending at least $50 on Mailprotector software licensing over the course of the next 30 days. And if you do that, you can go ahead and get these benefits that we're talking about here. And then obviously the contract expires at the end of the month, essentially. And so if you need to add more seats, remove seats, you can do that as well. An interesting thing too, say that you are in between. So say your billing date happens to be the first of the month. This could apply to any date over the course of a month. But if your billing date is the first of the month, say, and 2 weeks into the month, you sign up a new customer and you want to get them on Mailprotector as well, you can do so. You can go right ahead. But they will not bill you for that software until the next billing date. So basically, if you sign up a new customer in the middle of the month, you're getting their Mailprotector software for free, and you can either pass the savings on to the customer. You can use that to get a little margin. It's a small thing in the larger scheme of these changes, but kind of interesting as well. But again, I think the thing about Mailprotector that will get people's attention is it's a 30-day commit, $50 minimum, and that's it. That's all they want. Malwarebytes, another familiar name, cybersecurity vendor out there. They certainly have been partnering with MSPs for a while. They hired a new channel chief, a gentleman named Brian Thomas. That was about 7 months ago. I interviewed him at the RSA conference. My first question was, okay, they hired you. Did they tell you your mission, like your marching orders? What is it that they most want you to accomplish? And normally you get a kind of broad answer to a question like that. He had a very specific answer. What they told me is, we've got 1,400 MSP partners today, and we want you to grow that number to 10,000 by the end of 2025. We're doing about $14 million in recurring revenue on our software. We want you to get that to $100 million by the end of 2025. As of today, so he joined 7 months ago. As of today, they're up to 2,200 MSPs, but he's still got a long way to go. So he's got a lot of work to do between now and the end of 2025. So what's he going to do? Well, he's done some things already. They have a new portal with some new resources on it, including their first ever deal registration system, which is going to be significant, I think, for a lot of partners looking for protection when they're working with Malwarebytes. And significantly, they are going to be making their software available via online marketplaces. So today, if you are an MSP partnering with Malwarebytes, you have to kind of deal directly with Malwarebytes. But they are starting this year, they're going to be adding the two-tier model as well. And they were very, very careful with me. They didn't want to name names. They didn't want me to name names. But just think about any distributors whose name you're familiar with, or an RMM vendor who has a marketplace where you can buy things. Pretty much anywhere you go right now to buy security software, they're going to be looking to forge a relationship with that company and make their software available there too. And then the other thing that they're doing is growing out their product into a more comprehensive kind of portfolio. So they're best known for incident response. They have EDR, they have endpoint protection. They have added, just within recent months, vulnerability assessment and patch management. Last week at the show, at the RSA Conference, they announced that they've got DNS filtering on the way, and they're going to be adding some more things, unspecified items down the road. They want to turn their platform into a sort of Swiss Army knife of cybersecurity, multi-tenant for MSPs. But that's what they're doing to get MSPs, and what Mailprotector is doing is relaunching its partner program. Wow,
that's a lot of growth. I want to see that guy's task list, like in Outlook. Yeah. I bet he's got just a trillion things to do to grow that kind of number. So Lisa, you're an MSP. You are the kind of folks that changes like these are supposed to attract. What do you think?
So first question I have for you in regards to Malwarebytes, Rich, did he talk to you anything about their branding, in the sense that Malwarebytes has always been known as a personal system, not necessarily commercial, but more on the residential or private side? Did he talk about that at all? Or did he say, that's going to be a focus of rebranding? And I mean, they have a huge lofty goal of how many more MSPs. And I guess they're going to go up against like Cisco Umbrella and stuff like that, right? I would think that would be their competitor. So
yep, absolutely.
I wonder, so my thought is, is the branding. The big thing I loved about Malwarebytes, Matt, to answer your question, is I love the deal registration piece. I think it's really shady to, say I'm going to be doing this and then lose the deal because they went direct or what have you. So I think I love the idea of deal registration. There's a couple of other vendors we work with that also do deal registration. And it's nice because it locks us in, and it doesn't really make it so that we have a necessary time frame, but it's ours. And they see it in the system, it's ours, we get the discounts, we're able to pass it on. So I really like that component. I don't know a lot about the Nebula and all the other pieces of it, but I can certainly speak to the purchasing side of things, and deal registration is important to an MSP. We want to hold on to our lead and keep it. So, and we don't want to lose that. And then in terms of Mailprotector, we're not clients there, but I really love the month to month. You are absolutely right, Rich. It's very frustrating, and there's a lot of grumbling in our industry because of some of the 3-year contracts that we're now forced to sign. I mean, we're big fans. We're clients of Cassette, but now we're locked in for 3 years. ConnectWise is doing long contracts and stuff. So if you're giving me an opportunity to be month to month, that's a relief, because clients might change, they might grow, they evolve, what have you. And it's nice to have that flexibility, a little bit of flexibility. So that's nice. And it also shows trust in their product. It shows trust that I'm going to provide you a great product. I'm going to go month to month because I believe in what we're providing you. So that's kind of nice branding and marketing as well. So, and I'm wondering if the Malwarebytes relationship is with Ingram. So, so they didn't say it, but I'm saying it. Is it really? Is it maybe?
Yeah, well, it'll be a number of distributors and a number of like RMM vendors that have marketplaces, but they were like, don't talk names. But you know, I don't know. I guess they're finalizing some of those deals. In answer to your question about Malwarebytes, so at some point during the interview, I sort of asked, well, you know, from a product standpoint, what's the elevator pitch for why an MSP would want to work with you as opposed to the many other security vendors out there? And one of the things that they cited basically was the brand. And absolutely, it is mostly known as a consumer brand,
Right.
but that makes it recognizable to your business customer. That's their feeling, is that this is actually a helpful thing. If you say I'm a Malwarebytes partner, that's a name, as opposed to whatever, even like Trend Micro, that is a name that might resonate a little bit more with your end users from the consumer side of things. So I don't think they have any plans to adopt like a different kind of commercial brand for their software. I think they're going to slipstream off the brand recognition around Malwarebytes.
Is that going to help with, Lisa? Is that going to help with MSPs though? Honestly, do you go out to your customers and pitch specific brands that you work with?
Never. Very, very seldom. Last night at our party, we actually had Datto there. Our Datto rep lives only a couple of hours away, and he's been so amazing and so wonderful to work with that we took advantage of some MDF dollars and helped sponsor our event, and we gave him a big shout out and all of that. But other than that, when we did the cyber insurance webinar, we didn't actually say that we have insurance through TechRug. We just said that he's an insurance provider. He's going to provide you with real world knowledge and experience of cyber, of what you need for the small business. So no, clients don't care. I'm just thinking about myself buying the product. Am I going to view Malwarebytes as a mature product because I've always viewed it, or meeting my needs because I've always viewed it as a residential or personal purchase versus a corporate? So I think they'll just have, yes, the name recognition is there, Rich. For sure. Everyone knows, I don't say everyone, I shouldn't say that, but so many people know Malwarebytes, but they also know them for one segment of the market versus, hey, can you handle my small business needs versus the home needs? So I think they just have a little bit of work. They'll have a little bit of explanation to do, excuse my language, but to just shift their elevator pitch. Well, you've always known Malwarebytes. Now we are servicing the small business. So they're going to have to just work on the language and tailoring it to the new and improved, I think. So that's my thought from a marketing perspective, that is.
Yeah,
I'm
agree.
sure there are a lot of other folks, who are in exactly that same boat.
Yeah. That was the first thing I thought of when I read the article, and I was like, really? They're doing I didn't even know they did all of this stuff. And DNS filtering, is that them? So I didn't even know all of that. So
who knows? You might go check them out and get wooed. It's always possible. Yeah. So let's pose that question to the listening and viewing audience. Is the brand of one of the tools you use, is that important to you? Do you use that to sell your customers, or do you just still put everything together in a stack and sell you as opposed to a specific brand? Let us know. Go to the comment section on YouTube. Let us know. Is the brand of your tools important as far as being recognizable? If you're listening, send us an email, podcast@channelpro.com, or hit us up on social media. We're on all of those too, and let us know what you think, because I would be curious. We'll move on there, and we'll move to our next story, because I've been waiting to get to this one, because stories like this, Rich, are always the ones that make me not be able to go to sleep at night, because I think of all of the horrible things that are lurking in the shadows and people trying to do nefarious things. So we probably could guess what a couple of the threats are, but we got a piece together that talks about 7 threat trends from the RSA conference. Is this going to make me scared, Rich, by the time the show's over?
Well, we'll see. I'm not going to go through all 7 here. I'll just maybe do 2, maybe 3 here a little bit. I've said this before, I think, on the podcast. Longtime listeners maybe have heard this, but lots of people like to be frightened, and often they will go to horror movies. They'll go to the movies to get that experience. I go to RSA I couldn't last year, because of the pandemic, but I first time since 2020, I was able to go back to that show and meet with a bunch of security experts and kind of ask them about the threat landscape. And it is kind of an amazing thing. And some of what we're going to talk about here isn't actually threat related, but it is scary in different ways. So for example, the first thing is I was in a conversation with a couple of different security analysts from Sophos, and it came up in the conversation that that the stuff that is worth stealing or most valuable to an attacker, I mean, typically that resides on servers, wouldn't you think? I mean, there's obviously very valuable information on PCs as well, but the really good stuff tends to be on servers. And in their experience, people out there are and when I say people, I'm not just talking about the end users. I'm talking about like channel pros and MSPs in a lot of cases are focusing almost exclusively on the PCs, the workstations. They're just not really worrying very much about the servers. And like Sophos has an XDR product that they introduced last year, and they say it is not uncommon for somebody to buy this and deploy it everywhere except the customer's servers. And then the customer gets hit by something, and they come to Sophos for help, and it's like, we can't help you. You weren't running the software on your server. We have no visibility into what happened there, et cetera, et cetera. This connects to a related issue. So one of the things, obviously, that we're all super familiar with in the last 2 years is that the move into the cloud that was already taking place before the pandemic got accelerated at an enormous rate in the last 2 years. So you've got a lot of companies moving workloads off of on-premise hardware into the cloud. And the problem is that sometimes they leave the on-premises hardware behind, and it's just there, it's running, nobody's using it anymore, but also nobody's patching it anymore, nobody's checking the configurations very much anymore. And so this executive from Trend Micro, Eric Skinner, who I interviewed at the RSA show, said roughly half of the serious incidents that we've dealt with in the last 2 years started with exploitation of assets in the IT security team was unaware of or was incompletely managing. So there's like stuff running out there that people have forgotten about. They didn't know it was there to begin with. It is undersecured or maybe not secured at all. And this has become, the attackers are aware of this now, that this opportunity is out there for them, and they are hunting down these underprotected servers as a way to get into businesses. Here's another one that I thought this was a little discouraging, I thought, because you turn the clock back 2 years and lockdowns are going into effect, offices are closing down, work from home suddenly is sprung upon us, and everybody has to figure out a way to access corporate resources from home. And in those early days in particular, for a lot of businesses, that meant RDP. That was like the only option that you had for a while. And everybody knows RDP has some serious security vulnerabilities associated with it. But in a lot of cases, there wasn't too much you could do about it right away. Well, it's been 2 years. And, in my experience talking to MSPs, talking to channel pros, most of them have either figured out a secure way to do RDP through like a proxied service of some kind, or they've moved away their customer away from RDP. They have another way of helping them get remote access to corporate resources. So you're kind of thinking RDP just not that big a problem anymore. So here is some data from Sophos. It is recently published, I think just last week, actually, during the RSA show. The percentage of external assaults into a company involving RDP dropped from 32% in 2020 to 13% last year. So in 2020, 32% of intrusions were related to RDP in some manner or another. That's all the way down to 13% in 2021. I think it's fair to say that's probably still dropping. The percentage of incidents involving internal use of RDP rose from 69% in 2020 to 82% last year. And this was a whole RDP issue that, quite honestly, had just not occurred to me, that it can be used inside a network too, as opposed to being used to gain access to the network from outside. Now, okay, so now we know 82% of these internal incidents involve RDP in some fashion or other. So, hey, Sophos, all you other security vendors out there, help us fix this problem. What do we do? Sophos was quite honest in saying, we can't help you with this, because RDP is built right into the Windows software.
Right.
You can disable it. But if somebody breaks into the network and they want to use RDP to move laterally, the first thing they're going to do is turn it right back on. And, you know, sure, if you're doing a really crackerjack job, then that's an indicator of compromise. Like if you can see RDP has suddenly come back to life, that's a sign that there's something wrong there. But basically, and I had the same conversation the next day with Huntress, and I said, is there anything people can do to stop RDP from being an issue inside the firewall, if you will? And the guy I was talking to thought about it for a while, and he said, yeah, not really. So RDP, folks, it's the gift that keeps on giving. It ain't going away as a risk in some fashion until Microsoft just kind of removes it from its software. Those are 2 of 7, and we can talk about more if you want to.
Well, Lisa, let me turn that over to you. Any comment on those 2 first?
The whole RDP, I talked to my engineers about that as well, and they said exactly what you said. You know what? You turn it off, the hacker's just going to turn it back on because it's built in. And so maybe a VPN could be a little bit more secure, maybe. But so that's all I can say about that. In terms of the server, I concur. When I was talking to my sales team, when they do the discovery of a prospect site, so often we find that there is no protection. There's no antivirus or whatever is on the server because it causes a lag. Oftentimes when the more software, when layering of protection you put on, it causes a lag. And so part A or B, they don't even know how to put they're not taking the time, maybe and I don't mean to blanket this, but maybe people are lazy and they're not putting exclusions in to help, to make it run faster. So we do see, and we win a lot of deals because we notice these holes. We notice these security risks when we're doing assessments of new prospect sites. So if that's you, do the right thing. You still need the antivirus on there. You still need to do all the endpoint protection, and then just do the exclusions. I don't know how to do the exclusions, so I can't speak to that, but I know that there's extra steps that we need to take to help. But it absolutely, I know a product like we deploy SentinelOne, and I know that there has been, I've heard some grumblings in my company about how it creates some disruptions, communication disruptions, and I'm not exactly sure what that means, but IT folks, you'll know what I'm talking about. But so a lot of times they're like, oh, let me just turn it off. Let me just not put it on. But then you're opening yourself up to so much risk. So we're seeing that all the time. So those 2 are huge. Yes. So I concur with everything, with Sophos and everything.
Well, so there were 7 in here. I know you had a chance to kind of skim through before we started. Was there any of these threats that surprised you or stood out to you that you wanted to talk about?
Not necessarily stood out to me, but I did want to share a story. So with the double extortion, before the hacker would extort the data and then encrypt it. They're not bothering to encrypt it anymore. So we just had, last year we had a client who was hacked, and they took the data. The hackers took the data, didn't bother encrypting it, and said, hey, pay the ransom. I've got your data. And so my client opted not to pay the ransom and said, I'm just going to take the risk. But we're seeing that as on the MSP side, I'm seeing clients get hacked, not encrypting anymore, just saying, I got your data and here's what we're going to do with it. So I think that we're seeing a lot of issues, and it happens to be that Lapsus hacking group was the same hacking group that attacked my client. So that surprised me that you were actually talking about that. So I think that was one thing that I underlined when I read the article. I'm like, oh, there it is. So
it's not just you.
Yeah. So we're
Yeah,
seeing
that was
it.
from Acronis that shared that particular
really?
insight, which I thought was really interesting. It's like when at least for me, when I hear the word ransomware, I think encryption. They break in
Right.
to the network, they encrypt all the data they can find. You got to pay them to get the decryption key and get your data back. And then, particularly last year, although I think this was happening earlier in that, there was this double extortion trend. We're going to encrypt the data, but we're also going to exfiltrate it. So you pay us once to get the data decrypted, and then they come back to you and they say, oh, by the way, we've got a copy of the data here. We're going to dump it on the internet unless you pay us a second time. And they found, apparently, and particularly this Lapsus hacker group have found that the money they make on the second piece of that, I guess, is better than they make selling the decryption. Let's just forget the encryption part and skip ahead to the good thing here.
Yeah.
And yeah, well, to steal the data and you got to pay, and that's the new ransomware.
Yep.
Essentially,
I guess if you're targeted well enough, that would be effective. But I have to imagine that there are some companies that would be like, fine, go ahead. There's nothing in there worth that anybody's going to want to see anyway.
There's always something that they want, but you know what? But you have to decide what you're willing to risk and having the data out there. And I don't remember how much the hacker, what Lapsus was asking for, but it was a significant amount. And I mean, I think it was like at least a 5-figure amount. It was significant. And so, but they opted not to pay it, but they also, which ended up upgrading a lot of their security that they didn't have because of it. So it created a mindset of, oh, I don't want this happening again. Let me do what I need to do. So I wish they had done it originally, but they didn't. So
the threats are real, folks. Protect yourself.
Stories from the trenches right here, folks. Stories from the trenches. I got them.
And there's other trends in here. Oh, go ahead, Rich.
I was just going to say one last good little final note on this that we were just talking about. So they, the bad guys exfiltrate the data so that they have a copy of it and they can make you pay to get it back. How are they exfiltrating the data? Well, in some cases, according to Acronis, they're actually using the backup software. They'll break into the backup software. They'll create a new backup job. The target will be on their server somewhere, and that's how they get the data out of the victim's environment.
That's just sad. That's just sad.
Yep.
All right. With that note, we all need a break. So why don't we do that? But when we come back, we are going to be joined with Justin Windsor. He's the channel chief of Splashtop. They put out the 2022 State of Remote Support Market Trends Report. And there's a lot of data in here that's very, very interesting. Now, we said there was a little story. So yesterday we went to record at our kind of normal time yesterday, and we recorded with Justin. And then Rich found out that they were going to throw him out of his hotel room, so we weren't able to actually record the rest of the show yesterday, and he had to go catch a flight. So that's why you're going to see a little quick wardrobe change. But there's that part was yesterday. But we are going to be back on the other side of part 3, and we'll be wearing. Maybe we'll change our clothes again just to throw everybody off. I don't know. We'll see. But it's an awesome interview. You're not going to want to miss it. Seriously, stick around for that, and we will be back in a few. Are you an MSP who is recommending Dell hardware to your end users? If so, then you'll want to check out the Dell Expert Network. The new Dell Expert Network program is a rewards and incentives program designed for service-focused MSPs who are supporting the small business market. This program is designed to deliver value and save time for MSPs who are recommending their end users to purchase Dell hardware. Currently, Dell Expert Network customers get an additional 3% back in Dell rewards when they buy Microsoft servers. Check out the Dell Expert Network today. Hello and welcome back to part 2 of this episode of ChannelPro Weekly. IT channel partners have been at the forefront of rapidly implementing digital transformation strategies for their customers over the past few years, mostly as a response to the coronavirus pandemic that forced businesses to shift to fully remote or distributed workforces. And these efforts, it seems, have come with a cost. Just last month, Splashtop put out its 2022 State of Remote Support Market Trends Report. That is a mouthful, folks. You try and say that 5 times fast. But it also includes some very interesting data and trends affecting today's IT workers. And here to talk about that is Justin Windsor, Channel Chief at Splashtop. Welcome, Justin.
Hey, how you guys doing today?
So did you guys come up with that title in order for it to specifically be a tongue twister, or was that just a coincidence?
It is a tongue twister, but yeah, I think it just was a coincidence of how the wording kind of played out.
That's awesome. So Justin, I'm super glad you're here, and glad you're here to talk about this with us. But first, let's learn a little bit more about you and what you do at Splashtop.
Yeah, no, great. Thanks. Yeah, so my role as channel chief, and talking about titles, I think that's kind of a cool title. So channel chief at Splashtop, really my goal is to run, direct, lead our entire channel program for the Americas, right? So that encapsulates a couple of different arenas. So we have varied resellers, we have MSPs, we have alliance partners, and we have integration partners. And, you know, at this point in 2022, obviously for this purpose of this segment, we're seeing a huge shift to remote support, hybrid workforce worlds. And it was really my job to enable our partners in any of those 4 disciplines to be successful in working with Splashtop.
Very cool. And so is your nickname around the office Chief? Is that what they call you?
No, my nickname's Maverick. And I did see the new Top Gun Maverick, and it's really great. But maybe at some point I'll become known as the Chief. But
the Chief. That's a good name.
I'll reserve the Chief to Eric Church. So
I like it. I like it. So you've been at Splashtop how long?
So I joined September of 2021.
Okay, so just fairly recently. And what were you doing before? What kind of led you to Splashtop?
So I was in a channel capacity prior to Splashtop, and a year ago, did not know Splashtop, but I did know we were working remote. And as a channel person, I travel a lot, and during the pandemic, I didn't, right? So I saw firsthand, you know, work from home, remote support being crucial, being vital. And when I started looking at Splashtop, and I can definitely share some stats that led me there. Again, I know the company, but when I started hearing stats that Splashtop is used by 85% of Fortune 500 companies, I was like, whoa, that's pretty good. Household names, GE, Toyota, Harvard. I was like, okay, that's a good start. Secondly, every time I talk to customers about Splashtop, people talk to us how easy it is, how, you know, ease of use, management, all that kind of stuff. And Splashtop, we have the highest rated NPS market, 93% in our market, which is astronomical. It's like, okay, so 85% of Fortune 500 companies have Splashtop. Seemingly, they love the product. 93% in an IT capacity is a very, very high mark. And the last stat that led me to Splashtop and then to bring a channel program to Splashtop in 2021 is that as of last year, we've already achieved a unicorn status to be evaluated as a $1 billion company. So I was like, wow, these are some compelling arguments to be able to go somewhere and make an impact and start a channel at Splashtop. And that's why I joined.
Very cool. And, you know, and I'm so glad that we have Lisa Shorr with us here on the podcast today, because she is a Splashtop partner, and you've had some very good experiences that with the product that you wanted to talk about. Yeah,
you know, I'm thankful you're here, Justin. It's kind of cool to meet you virtually. And so thank you for your products. And it has helped us. You know, there's a huge conundrum for MSPs when the pandemic hit. And before it was, I don't want to say it was like a neatly wrapped package of whatever was managed in an office, you know, we were able to just RDP in or, you know, remote in through our RMM tools and all of that. But once people went home, we started seeing a whole slew of endpoints, laptops, devices that we weren't managing, but the employee was using. So Splashtop, thankfully, enabled us. And so a client will call and they'll say, and I'm sure all of you can kind of relate to this, right? You'll say, the client will call and say, my computer won't work. What happened? I can't do it. I don't know where it is. I don't understand. So we just say, okay, sos.splashtop.com. Let's log in. Let me see what you're seeing and let me help you solve your problem. And so that has enabled us to help so many more. And I like the fact that, you know, Splashtop is more secure and, you know, is a secure solution as well, you know, if I am going to be logging in remotely. But it has enabled us to service so many more any kind of devices that we can, you know, log into, because if it's not managed in a nice, you know, network part of an office, the home environment has created all kinds of havoc for us and so much more stress. You know, we're talking about stress, we're talking about all of that, but thankfully we had a way of logging in to help solve a lot of problems. So thank you for that, Justin.
So now Justin, Splashtop, that is one facet of what Splashtop does, is the remote kind of desktop type of solutions. But what else does Splashtop do besides that?
Yeah, no, great. So I think here's the thing. Splashtop, we've been in business since 2006, and really under the banner flag, if you will, of Splashtop since 2011. And credit to our 4 founders to recognize over a decade ago that we think over time, more and more people are going to have the ability to work remote. So we really came to market in 2011, really around a story around remote access and remote support. While at that time, things such as VPN existed, to Lisa's point, maybe not the most secure, right? From a connection perspective. And our business in March of 20, as you probably can imagine, 2020 just boomed as work from home became the de facto. And I think we can all agree one byproduct of the pandemic, right, is this work from home, hybrid work environment, Tuesday, Thursdays, whatever. This is just the way business is going forward. So an organization always has to have the technology available that they have something that can support the user satisfaction, productivity, but with security, IT can trust. And if that is the case, I think what Splashtop does has a very, very good story to tell. The other thing I really like about Splashtop, and the other thing I'll highlight, is while it can be remote access for a student, for an employee to access certain devices and certain software on those devices, or be a tool to remotely support devices from an IT help desk perspective. When we say the word devices, and Lisa, I'm glad that you said that, from a Splashtop perspective, where we're going is, can we go from a PC to a Mac, from a Chromebook to a PC, an iPhone to a Mac? Yes, all of the above. But if we really take a step back and say, look, if Splashtop is truly agnostic of device, and we really don't care what physical shape it is, right, which we don't, now we're having conversations really about Internet of Things. And the Internet of Things business right now, ladies and gentlemen, is a $350 billion market. So now Splashtop has customers such as household pharmacies that you see very often, very large theme parks, I'll leave it at that, that we support point of sale machines. And now you look at when you go out to eat and you see a Toast or a Touch Bistro, take your orders. If you see an ATM that I recently saw at the airport in Dallas, those are the kinds of devices we now can support. So while we're remote access, remote support, we're seeing a huge trend to really ensure that the workforce in those types of settings is also secure.
You know, it's amazing that we're in the day and age where you have all these remote access tools to access things like automatic pancake makers at restaurants. That's really, really interesting and fascinating. But you kind of led into, I think, into the broader conversation at large, is that there has been a lot of transformation over the last couple of years. And Splashtop has this report that kind of looks at the IT help desk and IT service, those who are doing those services, and talks about like some of the trends and some of the things that we see. Tell us about this report and how it came about.
Yeah, 100,000%. So we looked at the market and said, okay, our business blew up in March of 2020, which is obviously a good thing. We all agree, like I said, remote is going to be the way forward. So how are our IT help desk organizations trending now as we close out, the first quarter here of 2022? So we went back out and we asked about 200 IT decision makers across North America, like, hey, what are you finding? You know, is it good? Is it bad? And really what we're finding, and you said the word digital transformation, and I think that is the predominant title we hear all the time. There's lots of buzzwords in IT, and digital transformation obviously being one of them. But I think a lot of organizations are failing to realize, okay, we are going to have a digital transformation, but guess what? We actually have to support it, right? It's not good unless we have support. And we found that there's about 65% of these help desk teams out there said, hey, my guys and girls are just reaching unsustainable levels of stress and burnout. Because now, back to your point, Lisa, like, okay, I would go to the office and they would fix my problem. But guess what? As much as the user is now remote, guess what? So is IT help desk, right? So about 100% of those who responded out of the 200 said that to provide support, it's now at a distance, and that's taking up a majority of our tickets, right? So that being said, I really think when you look at the market, where we're at, the burnout that's starting to be faced by IT support is real. And what we're also finding, some other key highlights, is that 95% of these respondents said, look, we always are ensuring that we have to optimize this flexible work-home life balance kind of thing, but it's presenting lots of challenges for us. And this is why a lot of those organizations and MSPs have adopted Splashtop.
So, Justin, I've been looking forward to this conversation ever since I first saw this report, because on the one hand, some of the statistics in this report aren't surprising at all. And in other ways, they were kind of surprising to me. I think the scale, the size of some of those numbers was sort of surprising. So 65% of help desk technicians are experiencing, or 65% of respondents say help desk technicians are experiencing unsustainable levels of stress. Just to be clear, that number probably wouldn't have been as big pre-pandemic, correct?
Oh, 100%. I'm not good in math. I was not good in math as soon as they said sixth grade algebra. I was like, okay, I don't understand this anymore. But here's another stat I'll leave with you. So in 2019, the average organization, again, always exceptions, but the average organization allowed 20% of their workforce to work remote. So you're probably talking sales, maybe help desk, maybe C-level people. But right now we're seeing that it's 60, 70, in some cases, 100% in the case of Twitter, that people are now working remote, and that their experience, right? And Lisa, you brought this up earlier, their experience working from home or on their PC, being at a Starbucks or in this, their kid being on the dining room table or Chromebook, they fully expect it to work all the time from whatever device. They can't afford downtime. And if they do, that's why these guys and girls are getting stressed out from a burnout perspective. But the other thing that we're seeing, and it also goes with one of the other challenges that we saw, is if an organization now does not allow you to at least partially work from home, we're seeing, again, 20% in 2019. We're now seeing this other big thing starting to happen in IT-wise. It's called the Great Resignation. If I don't have a job that can allow me to support my work-life balance, because now I've kind of got to figure it out, right? I'm going to go find a job that can. So the impact on IT support to handle all that is, I think, leading to some of this burnout.
We've seen.
I want to come back to the, go ahead, Lisa.
Just to concur with that, in terms of the Great Resignation, we have seen some of our employees leave to go to other IT jobs, but they're not in the MSP world. They're in an IT department where the job that they're doing is more. I had 2 employees that left, 3 actually, that left to go to a department and in a bigger company. And so their job is going to be more predictable. It's so, because where we are right now in the MSP world. So I want to comment on just 2 quick things, Rich. One, where we are in the MSP world is we are absolutely needing to do all we can to keep our engineers and our entire staff happy, because you're right. I mean, the need, the expectations of our clients is immediate. I mean, this whole work from home, there's a sense of time that's lost. And so we have to be very careful when we're answering the phones and setting expectations as to when people are going to get a call back. On the flip side, also, we have to do all we can to keep the employees that we have and be very thankful for those that haven't left and that are staying. And so that's coming at a cost of hybrid environments. It's coming at a cost of higher salaries. So it's been a very interesting. So the idea of all this, so I agreed, and I had one question on this report, but I agreed with almost the whole report about retention and burnout, and our conversations, myself as an owner, has shifted to wellness and how are you doing? How are you feeling? How are you? And what can we provide you in terms of tools, in terms of time, in terms of whatever we can do to make you feel okay or feel better, feel supported, feel validated, feel listened to. So absolutely, Justin.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like there is both a technology issue and a human issue here. And maybe let's start with the technology issue. I mean, what is it about supporting work from home, the kind of remote support that help desk techs are doing today that makes the job more stressful?
I think Lisa's point that it's got to be immediate is a good place to start, right? I think the user experience, if I worked in IT in say 2018, which I did, and if I had an experience at home from whatever device, and if it wasn't as quick and there was latency issues, I was okay with that, right? That's okay, I'm going to the office tomorrow. But now a user expects from any device it to be the exact same experience. And secondly, the average user is using multiple devices now for work purposes, and they expect that performance to be the same at all time. Waving a Splashtop flag real quick, we can do 4K streaming at 60 frames per second. So we have very large movie studios that have produced animated films now back in the movie theaters on Splashtop. So the challenge for IT is to ensure that can I give them the performance they need to do their job? Because if they're not doing their job, they're going to get frustrated. If they're frustrated, my help desk tickets, they just keep going up. So performance is a big issue. And then the other challenge is security. How can I ensure that what I'm using as hopefully a holistic tool, which also is another conversation piece, is whatever I'm using as a tool can holistically manage as many of these devices as possible. Most notably, I was in Texas last week. Right now I'm in Seattle. And I met with a gentleman from a very large retail hospitality kind of customer. And he has one of our competitors, and he said, they can't support all my devices. And I said, tell me more. He said, I got my team, right? Because he was CIO, right? But he said, my team, they got to use that software for those devices, that software for those devices, that software for those devices. Think about the challenge that presents where you don't know what device the user has out in the field. You're in Minnesota, they're in California. You have no idea what they're connecting. You have no idea they have no idea what you have. So the stress that it puts on there to holistically manage it to ensure security and performance, I think is a telling stat.
I concur. From the small business perspective, we're so used to working with offices. And then now what the pressure from my team was, we're getting a lot of calls to support all of these home networks, and we know nothing about them. So we have to take a risk and support a computer that's shared with the children, we don't know what we're going to find. We don't know what the environment looks like. We don't know our clients' homes. Some people were literally working in a living room. Some people had a desk in their bedroom. Like, it became this different conversation. And so for the small business perspective, it was like, how do we, I got to go from the office to someone's house. And do I want to go to the house? But how do I support them? But I don't even know what it looks like. I don't even know what device they're using. What model? Are they using a PC or a Mac? So it posed quite a few stressful challenges because they had to be open-minded as to, okay, let's figure this out. Let me log in and see what you got.
Right, and it seems like that's going to be more and more challenging as we go forward too, because there's even a data point in the report that says that 94% of organizations are allowing or requiring, which is an interesting point. I want to get your take on that, Lisa, personal device usage for work. So what that means, 6% of companies are saying no, bring your own device. You got to use what we give you. Not the vast majority are saying you not only can bring your own device, in some cases you have to. That's interesting.
I think that I would prefer, I don't love the idea of a non-company computer or non-company device allowed to be used. We stress to every client, as well as internally, that we put agents on it so we can monitor, so that we can secure it and monitor it. So it's a challenge, Matt, and I'm sure, Justin, you've seen this as well, but it's been such a challenge. And as a best practice, I don't love the idea of just, the whole bring your own device, and whichever device. We have to have a responsible conversation as to, okay, if you're going to do that, we need to talk about the device. What are you using? I need to put an agent on it so I can put it in my RMM, so I can monitor it. I can put other tools on it so I can, Sentinel-1 or whatever, so I can keep an eye on it. I mean, it's so dangerous, and hackers know it. And if the minute you're connecting to a work network in an insecure way, then you're.
I'm going to bring my Tandy 400 as my BYD device. That thing's secure. No problem. Justin, are you seeing that too? This massive rise in BYOD? Was that stat far different before the pandemic, or is it just the way it's always been going?
No, it's definitely different. I mean, I think if you looked at the normal IT individual, right, they probably, you keep going back years or from whatever, right? But I think if you looked at the average worker in, say, 2010, how many people had a laptop for work, right? They went and had a desktop. Then over time, laptops became the normal. And then it was like, okay, well, these people are workers. They can take their laptop at home. They can bring it into the office. But to Lisa's point, it was a company issued device. It still was a company laptop controlled by them with security tools, agents, all those things, right? Now, I mean, how many of us, when you saw job requirements, it had location, like you had to be within a certain location. Now, does that matter anymore? I work for Splashtop. We're headquartered in Cupertino, California, right down the street from Apple. I live right outside Raleigh, North Carolina. Does it matter anymore? Maybe, maybe not. I have a company issued Splashtop laptop, of course, right? But point being, how many people now getting jobs and saying, hey, this is my device, I need to work with it? Because again, going back to Lisa's point, my point, if they're not allowing you to do that, they're going to go find a job that can. But the burden that puts on IT is huge. And again, back to our report real quick, in our responses out of those 270% of those people responded said that over half, or about 50% of the user, the tickets they responded to were just user errors. hey, I don't know how to do this. Lisa, you said the same thing. Can you fix it? Right? So they have to have a tool that enables them to quickly identify the problem, remediate the problem, and then say, hey, don't do this again, because there's gonna be another ticket and you're putting our company at risk. So I think the trend, Matt, is it's going to continue to rise. And if you're, as an organization or as an MSP, you will have to support this BYOD movement. And never mind the fact that, again, traditionally work purposes meant a desktop, laptop, but then these things came out. And how many times do we all respond to email or on our phone, or, hey, you know what, I'm just gonna, I'm done working, you're on the iPad or whatever, you're watching a movie on the plane, and then an email comes across. Oh, okay, I'll go ahead and do that. So the average person now has almost 3 devices they use for work purposes. So back in the day, it was 0 because it was a desktop. Then it became laptop. Now it's okay, laptop, phone. Now it's laptop, phone, handheld, tablet. And IT, guess what? You got to support it. And if you don't, I'm going to go find a job that can.
That's me. You just described me. And I check my email on my watch. So
the watches too. So exactly my point. But the point is, there's all of these devices out there that IT has to manage. Another stat. Right now, there are 29 billion devices connected to the internet. 29 billion. We're talking phones, we're talking refrigerators, we're talking point of sale machines, we're talking Teslas. And here's the challenge. They have to be supported in real time. And I think that's the gap that we've had. We all want digital transformation. And that's fine, but guess what? You have to support it, because if we have a customer at Splashtop, we don't, because it's Splashtop, of course, but if we have an organization that has a point of sale machine and it goes down, as a consumer, I'm not mad at the vendor, the manufacturer of the point of sale machine. That's not my challenge. I'm mad at the restaurant. Case in point, I was in Denver. As you can see, I travel a lot, but I was in Denver last week of March. I went to this little place to get tacos, set up my laptop, same one here, get a water. The point of sale machine went down for a half hour. From a user satisfaction perspective, how many more times is people gonna go back? Food was good, but it took me a long time to get out of there. I'm gonna go to the other place down the street, right? But now that's putting the burden back on IT to support that, again, in real time.
So I want to get a take from both you, Justin, and Lisa on a thought that I had when I was looking at these statistics before. So we've been talking about this in terms of the technical issues that a help desk technician runs into, and some of the dynamics of supporting people who are working from home on personal devices, et cetera. To what extent do you think the stress that is being reported in this research, though, comes from the techs either being required to go back to the office or not being at the office the way they used to be? Is it something about where they are working and their work conditions maybe that is making that job more stressful too?
For me, I'll take the take. I don't think it is having anything to do with their location, right? I think there's cases made for both sides, but the argument I raise is this. We have a customer, a very large university, and for their agriculture department, they have 165 locations, right? So think about a non-pandemic world. That guy or girl would get in their car, they would drive to location A, fix their problems, drive to location B, fix their problems, drive to location C. Hopefully they're home before dinner time, or they're gonna get yelled at. And now the argument is, well, just work from home, especially with gas prices right now, just stay home. You can do more from home. I think we all can see that. Like, at what time as a worker, you said, okay, I got to leave my house by this time to beat traffic, to be in the office by this time, I got to leave home by this time so I don't miss my kid's baseball game, right? That's what we saw. And again, I'm not missing my son's baseball games for sure, right? But now I think the world that we live in it's always on, right? It's just like these phones. So I think the burnout just has to do with the sake of argument is, back in the day, there was implied it's okay to wait till tomorrow. There's an implied RPO or RTO objective that it's a 2-hour response time. But now a user is putting that burden back on IT. And to Lisa's point, IT has no idea what these devices are. They don't. If you're an organization headquartered in Kansas City and you say, hey, we're growing our team, business is good, and we're going to hire this guy from Seattle, guess what? IT's got to support that guy. And that guy's got 3, maybe 4 devices. And I think when you have that and just the constant pressure to provide support at a distance, I think this, almost 70% of people reporting burnout, I think is pretty accurate.
So I think that I'll just speak to my MSP's perspective, in that some of my employees prefer to be in the office. So during the pandemic, a couple of my employees have young children at home. And so the struggle of having to teach them, the struggle of having to, maintain utilization, the struggle to be responsive to our clients created a lot of stress and a lot of distractions. So what we were seeing at home was a lot of distractions. Now, some employees have actually come to us during the review process and said, I want a hybrid workforce. Like I don't want to come back to work full time. And it's indicative of me staying that I have this option. And so some people loved it, but I have a good handful of employees that would really prefer to be in office because of the distractions and how stressful it is having young children, having to deal with all of the home issues as well as, and getting their job done because it's so many distractions. So it was hard, and maybe some of them didn't have an actual work environment that's conducive to being a remote support engineer or, an engineer in general. So I think that it's kind of both ways. I think you're going to get a mixed bag, Rich, from people. Some are going to be like, I just want to be in the office. I miss the camaraderie. I miss the conversation. It's too chaotic having to teach the kids and try to teach the clients what they need to know and how they need. I mean, that user error statistic in this report is absolutely so accurate. I can't tell you how many calls come in, printer issues. I can't find a file. Oh, I think I deleted it, or I don't know how to find this, so I can't. And so, but it's distracting. Then you've got a kid knocking on the door saying, hey, I can't figure out this math problem. Can you help me? So that definitely fed into these statistics. So we're still seeing that, but I don't know. Going forward, I'm curious to see how this changes. If you do this report in a year, what the change will be.
Yeah, it's accurate. I think the takeaway, like I said, in the pandemic, we're never going to get back to the point where it's Monday through Friday, go in the office 9 to 5. Those days are over. Yeah. But I do think in certain verticals and certain industries that you are going to see much more of a hybrid workforce, right? I mean, listen, I work for Splashtop. We have, I would contend, the best solution, software-based for remote technology relative to access and support. But you know what? There's still something to be said, to your point, Lisa, going to the office, whiteboarding stuff on the wall, taking people out for happy hour, like that still matters. And we live in this remote world. And I also kind of, go back to like, how remote do we really want to be? With that movie that came out recently, I forget the title, where, everyone's wearing virtual headsets and they can't even talk to people in real life. But I think a year from now, would be interesting to see what the report looks like. But I think we all can agree hybrid workforce is here to stay.
So I want to touch on one last potential source of help desk stress here before we wrap up. The report found 94% of respondents said the help desk function has been impacted by hiring challenges or retention issues. No surprise there. I think everybody knows how tough the hiring and retention climate is right now out there. But the report also said 67%, 2/3 of the respondents, have had challenges maintaining IT support goals because of those hiring and retention issues. And so maybe part of what makes working at the help desk harder is that there are empty seats at the help desk, basically, and the people who are still there are overburdened. I don't know if what your perspective is on that, Justin. I'd be curious to hear if that has been an issue at all for you, Lisa.
Lisa, go ahead.
So I think that one of the issues that we're really seeing, it's the workforce, it's what I'm hiring. It's the caliber of technical skills more so than almost anything else. We're the skilled engineers, many of them are already gainfully employed. So who am I hiring? I'm hiring for personality and culture fit first. And then do they have a technical school degree if I'm willing to go that route? So that's been my experience, Rich. I mean, the hiring and the retention piece has been quite the experience. I mean, Eric and I are literally, listening, bending over backwards, doing what we can to create an environment to keep everybody, to make them feel welcome, to make them feel like they're part of the solution, they're part of the end game, they're part of the goal. On the hiring side, I have to now be okay with hiring lower level engineers. So when you talk about service goals, for us, the service goals are how quickly can I get this engineer up to speed, A, to lessen the burden on my other engineers that are training so they can go back to their, full workload. And B, when can this guy be billable or gal be billable? Like how quickly can I make them a revenue generating aspect of our team? And so that's what we're seeing. We're taking the long route. More than half of our employees have come from internships. I love that. I love the idea. We have a great technical school here in Rhode Island, and we do internships. A lot of them, we have a great relationship, and we take the people, the creme de la creme of the class, and move them up and train them. And they come out with A+ certification and some foundational stuff. But in terms of the rest of the networking, we need to take the time to now train them. So that's where our goals and maybe a lag of goals. We are seeing growth though, thankfully, because of automation, because we're able to have processes and procedures in place. We still this year have double-digit growth, thankfully, from every year we've seen that. So I'm very, very thankful. But the big challenge is the talent pool, and who are we hiring, and how do you get them up to speed quick enough?
Justin, any response to that?
No, I think all the points Lisa said are very valid. I think the other thing I would just say from maintaining IT support goals, I mean, another stat, we've all heard of this IT work for a very long time, is 80% of IT budget is used to keep the lights on. 20% is spent on innovation. So think about that. If 80% of IT budget is used to keep what they have working, guess who has to make it work? The engineers. Guess where the engineers are? Who knows? Guess what devices they have? Who knows? Guess what the engineers, the devices they have to connect to support their users are? Who knows? So how many of these IT teams will say, hey, I have these 10 projects this year, whatever it be. I don't have time to do them, right? And I'm just getting stressed out and burned out because I'm doing so many of these tickets remotely. I don't have time to meet my goals to support the business initiative that 80% of their budget has to be used to keep business flowing. So that's the only other comment I make relative to that point.
Good. Very interesting stuff. For those who are more interested in reading this report, Rich, are we going to have a link to that in our show notes?
Well, yeah, absolutely will. Yep.
All right. So folks, so open up the description area. If you're watching on YouTube, we'll put the links there. Go to channel1.com, find the show sheet for episode 228. We'll have the links in there as well. And of course, if you're on your phone, you can usually open up that description area and see the links in there. And then Justin, for anybody who wants to learn more about Splashtop or get in touch with you, where can they go? How can they find you?
Yeah, super easy. So splashtop.com is our website. And then my email is just first last name at splashtop.com. So justin.windsor@splashtop.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on. Fascinating discussion. Hopefully we'll have you back on again, maybe even next year on the next report, and we'll kind of compare and see how things change.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll be wrapping up the show on the other side with some fun and some other things. So you won't want to miss it. We'll be right back. And welcome back to part 3 of ChannelPro Weekly. We are back in our original close that we started with for those who are watching. So we we don't have the, I think I was wearing orange yesterday, but either way, you get 2 different looks in one day. So that's pretty fun. But more importantly, other than the clothes we're wearing, what an interview that was. Holy moly. Rich, any things that you want to highlight from that? Any takeaways?
Well, I'm just glad that we're sort of surfacing something that maybe some folks in the audience could have thought was particular to them, right? So, I mean, there is data now out there that shows being a help desk technician, and by extension, being an MSP, is more stressful than it used to be. And so if you were experiencing that before and thinking this is just me or my people or whatever, nope, it's an issue for everybody for all the reasons we just discussed.
Yeah, Lisa, any thoughts or anything that came out of that you found interesting?
Yeah, no, I empathize. I think that everything Justin said was, valid. Splashtop has helped us to be able to catch more devices. The whole work from home situation has created a higher stress level because we're not familiar with the networks. And so thank goodness for tools like Splashtop that allows us to log in and see what's going on. Our clients aren't technical. And so we totally empathize with them. And I think our community, I empathize with our entire community with the workload and the shifting of the workload since the pandemic. And, having networks and computers that are outside of networks, traditional office networks, has posed quite the challenge for us. And so thankfully there are tools to help us get to know them and also have really good discussions about, hey, you know what, client, we really need to discuss on how to make this more secure. You need to really provide office-based technology for your employees, not just the same computer that the kids are using and what have you. So that was my big takeaway for sure.
And a very good one too. And we talked about it briefly after the interview, because there was one part of the report that we didn't get to that I know we wanted to ask about, because it was in that report, and that was the increasing use of AR with support. And I know you said that you guys haven't really dove down the AR rabbit hole yet.
Yeah, no, I'm curious to know more about it. Yeah.
Yeah, and we were talking about that, and I think, Rich, we're going to maybe see if we can get somebody on at some point to kind of do a segment on that, because I bet lots of folks would be really interested in how they can improve efficiency by utilizing some of the newer AR tools to service customers. So that sounds like something that might be of interest.
Love that.
Yeah, and there are multiple vendors in the remote access space who are either offering something along those lines now, or we're like, this is kind of a trend. I don't know a lot about it as well, and I don't know how many MSPs are actually using anything like that, but I think that's going to become more and more common over the course of the next few years.
Absolutely, very cool. Well, we're going to move on. We've got a segment we haven't done in a while, Rich. This is exciting. Folks, we are doing a museum pick today. I am so excited. Lisa brought something related to her company's 30-year kind of anniversary that she wanted to show off. And we have never had anything like this on the show before. So Lisa, tell us what you brought.
I brought my vintage Casio cassette player. Now we tried to research the date and the time, but we couldn't really figure it out. But my MSP is celebrating 30 years. It was founded in 1992 by my husband, Eric, literally in his dorm at the University of Rhode Island. That was his first office, so to speak. We've had 5 other offices since, but the technology is amazing how it's evolved over time, including the audio technology. So I've had this forever and ever. I actually even found, when I pulled this out of my basement, cassette. Like, so look at all, we don't do these anymore. I mean, look at the difference. I mean, I've got the antenna, and it's amazing how far we've come with wireless and Wi-Fi, and it just is amazing. And the cassettes, no, not needed anymore. They're all MP3s. And
yeah, so for our younger viewers and listeners, a cassette, there was a time when you couldn't just press a button on your phone and have songs magically appear and start playing. Like, they had to be loaded on this physical thing. And in this case, it was like a little mini reel to reel with what they called tape that went from one reel to the other reel as you played it back. And that was how the song. Yeah. So we'll put that. So Lisa's showing you the tape. So hold it up one more time, because I was talking, so I didn't have it. So yeah, you see that there's that strip that kind of goes across there, and it was coming out of one reel to the other. These things were a royal pain in the butt. The sound quality was actually pretty good.
It was pretty good for the day.
Yeah, it was pretty good. But like, I remember a lot of times, like, if the tape would peel out, you'd have to get like a pencil, and you'd have to try to like roll the tape back up into the thing.
Remember, you had to press the play and the record button at the same time to record anything. And
that's right. Well, and that's one of the things that made cassettes somewhat unique, is that you could record to them as well as playback. It was not the first consumer format where you could do that, but it was certainly the most popular. So it was very common back in the day. Like today you have like playlists on Spotify. Well, back then you could kind of make your own playlist by recording songs from the radio or from your other things onto a tape, and kind of have your own mixtape.
I was just going to say that. Yeah. Mixtape. We used to call it our mixtapes. Yep. So,
and young men trying to woo young women would sometimes make them a mixtape of their favorite songs.
I sure did.
To think of back in the day. So, but because you brought that on, and it's super exciting. Thank you. Oh, show the radio. I love showing the radio. So if you look at the radio on this, it's got an AM/FM tuner on it. Hold up the front. Let's see the front. Look at that. Right at the top.
Right here, right? AM, FM, all the stations. And then you've got the volume button up here. It's like, do you want AM or FM? Turning it into the power. So
right. And the tuner, it's not digital, folks. You can't just like tune it to like 107 point whatever. Like it's like a little analog slider, and you kind of had to guess kind of where, like by listening, maybe they'll say the radio station name. Pretty fascinating stuff. But that back in the day was high tech stuff. But let's say, for example, you didn't want to carry around that big boom box. Well, you know what? They made portable versions as well. And what do you know? I finally have an excuse to reach into the museum, which I have very, very few things left that are of interest to talk about, particularly in the IT world. But you never know. Sometimes I go digging through the basement, or sometimes I go digging through the museum cabinet. I find something new, but I found something that is related to this for sure. And I'm going to hold up here the Stereo Mate. This is the Realistic, which means it was like a Radio Shack brand. Actually, was Realistic Radio Shack, or was it the cheap Panasonic? I can't remember. I think it was Radio Shack. It was like the Radio Shack brand of stuff. This is the SCP-33. We were able to find a date on this. This was circa 1990 to 1992. Woo-hoo! So it fits right into the time frame that we were looking here. Yep. It's just got 4 buttons at the top. It's got the fast forward, rewind, play, and stop. This one did not record. This was a playback only kind of machine. It could run off of AC power if you needed to. And on the side here, it's got a volume control. And this one was interesting. It had an independent volume control for left and right. Isn't that weird? There's actually 2 dials
attached to that. Like, is that like a speaker built in, like this thing, or did headphones attach to
No,
that?
it was only headphones, but you could actually control the left and right earphones independently. They built that in. There's actually 2 wheels. I don't know. Do you see that right there?
Yeah.
It's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to tell. Yeah, it's really strange. And then a little battery indicator. And so you'd open up there, you'd plop your tape in, and away you go. You would listen to your music on the go, walking down the street with your headphones going, because that's what you did back then. And this is how you played music on the go. So yeah, old kids, this is what technology was back then. And
this is what we did. Yeah.
And it's amazing how many individual devices we had to do very specific functions that are now all done by your phone. Like you just have a phone that does it all. Right? You used to have a camera, you used to have a music player, you used to have you have a day planner, a calendar, a notebook for like writing your telephone contacts. If you had a cellular telephone in 1990, it was like giant, like in a bag.
I had the bag phone. Remember the big bag phone? Yeah, it would have to be something like that. But now it's all just one thing, which is really crazy. Kids getting smaller and smaller. So
all the time. It's amazing. Well, thank you for bringing that on. Fascinating look back at the world of old audio. I do have some other audio, other stuff I could bring on that's kind of consumery AV related that I might bring on down the road as we go forward, as we get the museum pick. I know some people really miss the museum pick and what we might do going forward, because like I said, I've ran out of mostly interesting things I have that are kind of like interesting to talk about that aren't just drawers of like network cards, because that would be really boring to talk about every week. But we might start doing like a technology history kind of piece, and we'll go back and we'll highlight some technology or some specific laptops or computers or any kind of tech item that might have historical significance that I may not actually own myself, because I only have so much room in my house to collect all this kind of stuff. And if I get any more of this stuff, my wife is like seriously going to kick me out of the house. So I can't, I cannot collect any more old stuff. But we can certainly talk about it. So the Casio CP50B is what that was. Great device to bring on. Lots of fun. Thank you for sharing that with us. Very, very cool stuff. Rich, did you have a Walkman or one of those cassette players back in the day?
I did. It's not inconceivable that it's behind me in the closet, that folks watching on video could say I might still have it. I vaguely remember finding it last year or the year before, and finding a cassette tape, and it no longer works. But I do still have it. And I also had the successor to that was the Discman, where you could put a CD into a portable device and play that.
I have a CD player downstairs as well in my basement, like this, but CD. So I do have that. But I don't have my Discman anymore. I don't know what happened.
I do have a Discman sitting in the museum that I might bring out for a special occasion, because that is a a fun one, and one that is near and dear to my heart because it has some personal significance to it. But we'll save that for another day. Rich, we've got a lot to cover because we got 2 weeks, a lot of stuff that we might have missed. Why don't you tell us a quick overview of what we missed and what might be coming up next week?
Well, you know, a great way to catch up on stuff that you might have missed is to go to channelpronetwork.com on Fridays, because end of day, you're going to find our In Case You Missed It post written by our own James Gaskin. This week, he's going to have some new Wi-Fi 6E access points from Zeisel, a new second job, a second role at Gradient MSP for Jay McBain, analyst at Forrester before. He's recently moved over to Canalys now, and he's an advisor for Gradient MSP going forward too. QuickBooks integration for those of you who use the Zomentum sales acceleration tool. And James is also going to have a few words for you about a new flavor of Pepsi available only in Japan that might catch on with fans of KFC here in America. And James can explain the whole thing for you on his In Case You Missed It post. Looking ahead to next week, I was just in Las Vegas for the Cisco Live conference. I'm going right back to Las Vegas next week to attend the Cassette Connect IT conference. The last time they did this, they did it at a slightly different time of year than they normally would, October, because of the pandemic. And at that time, they had a pretty good crowd. I have a hunch they're going to have a really big crowd next week because there are going to be a lot of people waiting to hear what Fred Vicola and the rest of the Kaseya team have to say about Datto, if they're able to say anything at all. So that ought to be interesting next week. The iTex conference is happening as well. I'll bet you our own buddy Joel Zadespinner is going to be there for at least some of the time. And there may be some news from an infrastructure vendor, but we're not going to get into that. Lots going on next week, folks.
And of course, we will have an episode of ChannelPro Weekly next week. Rich, any clues as to who might be joining next week and why people would want to tune in?
Yes, yeah. So our guest host next week is Angel Rojas, an MSP from Florida. He's been with us on the show before. It has been way too long since we've had him with us. So he's coming back as guest host. And our interview segment is going to be with another MSP from the New England area named David Rose. Our colleague, Colleen Fry, our managing editor here at ChannelPro, recently wrote a story for her not-for-profit column about work that David is doing in the community locally. And so he's going to come on, he's going to talk a little bit about what he's doing, but he's also going to sort of prompt a conversation about how you can get involved in your community and the rewards of doing that, the personal and professional rewards of doing that. So I'm looking forward to that very much. We'll have Colleen back on with us. We'll have David Rose, and we'll have Angel Rojas again.
And how can you not miss it, folks? Subscribe to the ChannelPro Weekly podcast everywhere podcasts are found. They're on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, all of them. Go, just subscribe everywhere you can because that's a good thing. Leave a comment and a rating too. It's also very important. Very important. If you like to watch, like see the museum pics that we talk about, or see our bright smiley faces as we go through the show, subscribe on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button, the bell, all the things that you have to press on there, and make sure you join us each and every week. It's a great to have you on. Of course, channelpronetwork.com is the website. Go there each and every day. Set it as your homepage. There you'll find the latest news, white papers, articles, downloads, resources, product reviews, all kinds of stuff to not only keep you on top of what's going on in the channel world out there, but also help you run your business better and make more money, because that's super important. Our guest hosts, Lisa Shorr, the one and only. Always a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much for being here with us. I hope you had fun.
Love it. Oh, I love this show. Absolutely. Thank you for having me once again. It's so much fun to talk about all the things we talk about, the industry trends, sharing stories from the trenches, our museum picks. I love it.
It's awesome stuff. And I cannot wait until we have you back. But in the meantime, if anybody wants to learn more about your MSP or about the Shorr Success stuff that you do to kind of help them and all the personal branding, where can they go? How can they find you?
Absolutely. So for Shorr Success, just visit shorrsuccess.com, SHORR, success.com. Right on the homepage is a calendar link. Click on it, book a meeting with me, let's talk. On the MSP side, go to securefuturetech.com. And you can learn more about my MSP, our core values, a little bit about what we service and what we do. So I would love to introduce you to Eric and myself, and let me know if you have questions there. Absolutely. Thank you.
Awesome. We'll put those links in the show notes as well. And believe me, folks, if Lisa is not a person you're connected to, you absolutely want to get connected to her. She is
Find me on LinkedIn too. Yep. Kind of connect with me on LinkedIn as well. I'm definitely very active there.
Awesome. And I hope they do. And of course, we will see you the next time you're on. Thank you so much for being there. And with that, that's going to wrap up episode 228. We will see everybody in 229 next week. Take care.